So now that we start configuring users and we start to set up the system, we need to go in and further configure the management console. Again, to log into the management console, typically during deployment, you're going to do that as the admin account. Just simply open your browser and point it to the IP address or the domain name that's resolvable for that via SSL. From there, you're going to launch the SMC. One thing I do want to mention here, you'll see in the graphic that when you launch the SMC, you have an option to set the memory allocation for that Java client. In the lab, we'll use 512 because we don't need to consume much on our sample data, much memory. However, if you plan on running large reports and you have enough memory in your system, in your local workstation or laptop, you may want to change the memory allocation to a larger number, like 1 gig or 2 gig. And all that's going to do is tell Java that it has that much dedicated RAM to work with so that we can cycle these large documents through your memory rather than going to swap. We'll basically carve out RAM for the client right now. Now, once you get in, you're going to perform these actions within the labs and subsequent days, but you're going to configure a couple things. One is the archive hour. The archive hour should be set to midnight in the time zone of the main administrative presence. There's several things that occur within the product as we process data that is processing one-day time slices or 24-hour time slices of unique information. That archive hour defines where that start and stop time of that period is. If your main administrators are in the Eastern time zone in the US, we want that archive hour to probably be reset at midnight because that makes sense to them. That's when a new day starts and ends. If, however, the main admins of the solution are somewhere in Europe or the Middle East or Asia Pac, we may actually want to set the archive hour to be midnight in their particular time zone. So again, this is something that can be modified, but this does have impacts on how data statistics are collected and stored and certain other types of tuning and alarming conditions. We'll also, at the front end of our configuration, want to set up SNMP. I'll show you that here in a second, setting up the SNMP configuration for us to reach out and get some additional information from the exporters that are sending us flow. And we may even want to configure email. In order for our solution to email reports off or alarm information, we need to have the management console set up in such a way that it knows where to forward the email to. So where is your email gateway, as an example. Now, I mentioned SNMP being something that would be nice to set up early on in the deployment. And what we would like to do is, as the exporters export us flow based on the timers, et cetera, the flow data comes into the collector and we can start to interpret the data. However, if you look at the top graphic, you'll notice that on the right-hand side, the interfaces are not named, they're just numbered, IF index 245. You may even see IF indexes of 10,005, 10,006, 10,007. That's great. It tells me that there's a unique interface and that it sent me data, but as an individual, it doesn't help me a whole lot because I don't know what that means. I don't know what interface index 4 is. So if we configure the management console and give it the ability to have read-only access back to the network devices that are sending us data, by default every hour, that management console will reach out and grab this information. So it'll basically say, okay, I know these interface indexes. Can you tell me for each of those what the name is, what type of interface it is, and what the description is, as well as the speed that is configured for that interface. That allows us to look more like we have at the bottom of the page here. No longer is it an ASA with interface index 2, 4, and 5. It's now an interface. It's now interface outside, interface students, interface training on the ASA. Again, for analysts, network teams, SecOps, that's going to make a lot more sense, as well as the fact that we know now that these interfaces are 100 meg, gig, et cetera. That's going to help us define certain types of reporting statistics within the product to tell you whether that interface is at 50% capacity or 10% or 100% capacity. So again, SNMP polling of the exporters is very critical. If you're not allowed to do that, you can manually configure this in the product, but if you have 100 routers with a couple interfaces each, that's a lot of manual configuration, and it's certainly something that's going to get stale over time, that's going to have to continue to be updated. So allowing SNMP to pull this information would really be the best way to go if possible.